Welcome to another episode of the cut content of Spec Ops The Line. And today we're going to dive back into Walt Williams' book Significant Zero. Walt Williams was the lead writer of Spec Ops, and in my previous video I talked about his plans for a scrap DLC centered around Lieutenant Adams. This time I'm going to talk about something a little less prominent in the game's development cycle, but still a very interesting tidbit that he notes. During the early days of Spec Ops development, there was some debate on how the story would go, and what all would happen. The team at Yager tried to put together a story based off of different ideas. The image of a sandstorm-covered Dubai really appealed to them initially, and so the story just built up from there as they pieced together how it happened and who all was in there and what led to that point and where is it now. Williams writes about some anecdotes involving an employee that, for the sake of anonymity, he referred to as Mr. Sunshine. Walt Williams and another co-worker asked this guy, Mr. Sunshine, to write a script, a full treatment for the game's story. It would include a lot, like a full story outline, backstory for the game world, character bios, proposals for missions, possible locations, and a list of key moments. It was a substantial amount of work, even though it was still a first pass. The guy asked for a month, and they agreed, because it seemed like he was just trying to be a consummate professional about it. And a month later, it arrived in Walt Williams' email. So he included everything, but the game took a bit of a different direction than what Walt Williams had expected. The game's main theme that it explored was global warming and eco-terrorism. The game opened on Delta scaling a skyscraper and then gunning down a squad of unarmed enemies who were playing volleyball and eating nachos. The game's villain was a soldier-turned-dictator-turned-eco-terrorist, whose goal was to turn Dubai into a war-torn hellhole so he could broadcast footage of his atrocities across the world via cell phone. These terrible images, accompanied by his charismatic speeches, would incite a third world war that would decimate the Earth's population and save the planet from global warming. I am not making any of that up. That's all described in the book. I want to throw that out there. The highlights of it included a spunky young reporter who traveled from New York hoping to snag a big one-on-one interview with Konrad, a holographic zoo dedicated to lions, giraffes, and other extinct animals, and an overturned boat that had been converted into a dive bar/memorial, where the parents of Konrad's soldiers spent their days getting drunk and lighting candles. Like the Cub reporter, these parents all traveled from the United States just to be here, somehow managing to traverse the impossible sandstorm surrounding Dubai. Williams thought that none of the summary made sense, and he couldn't understand the game's core design or logic. He reached out to one of his co-workers about it, and like him, they were really caught up and confused about the idea. Williams notes that he wasn't trying to belittle the guy in this, and that he had pure intentions, and he was very passionate about the story he wanted to tell. He just didn't think that it was the right story to tell within the context of Spec Ops. To Williams, it seemed like Mr. Sunshine, the guy's summary, did the opposite of working within the constraints. He saw Dubai covered in sand and asked why. The answer, he decided, was global warming. He ignored the other pieces because they weren't necessary to his vision. His story rang false to Williams because he treated the characters, gameplay, and genre as window dressing. Apparently, Williams reached out to him about the issue, but Mr. Sunshine stood by what he wrote. For him, Spec Ops was a platform, an opportunity to speak out against carbon emissions. Not to do so would be borderline criminal. They talked one-on-one about how the story was going to be based on Heart of Darkness, and they shouldn't ignore that direction. He thought that Williams just wanted it to be dark and gritty, which was true, but something inspired by Apocalypse Now and Heart of Darkness. They discussed possibilities of dark and gritty content, just nothing that would go over and above into, like, sheer offensiveness for the sake of offending. The guy sent back the script a month later without making a single change. They got into a bit of an argument about it. Particular quote is, Mr. Sunshine apparently said, "I'm sorry, but we have a responsibility to say something important about how we're treating the environment." Williams noted that, "We're making a game about shooting people in the fucking face, and you think the best venue to start a conversation about global warming is this?" And Mr. Sunshine stood by his belief that even if he thought the idea was dismissive, that's what he thought. And that was the end of that. Apparently, the guy was removed from the team, and they got a good writing team together for Spec Ops, according to Williams. As Williams noted, writers who cannot take feedback are not writers. They are children playing make-believe. All they want to do is bang on a keyboard, hear that fun clickety-clack sound, and be told how special they are. Game development is not a daycare. It's a job. Video games might be art, but not all of us are artists whose personal visions must be allowed to blossom like a delicate flower. Our value is measured not in ideas, but in our ability to execute. A team needs to know you have their back. We ride together, die together, and for God's sake, learn our fucking place. Doing so will not make you a soulless wage slave. In fact, it'll grant you immortality. Don't like the task you've been given? Let go of your ego, find an angle that interests you, and then bring it to life like it's the last thing you ever create. I guarantee that it'll be unforgettable. That was something else. What do you guys make of this very strange treatment of the game's story? Would you have played this? Would it have interested you, the global warming-centered Spec Ops? I think, in a weird way, it could have worked. There's a level in the Dead Living Zombies DLC of Far Cry 5 where you play as a park ranger fighting mutated animals and zombies because global warming has caused a zombie outbreak to happen. And that was genuinely a fun level, even if it was poking fun at the environmental message games. It seemed like a concept like that could definitely work. But I'm not sure, like Walt Williams said, if Spec Ops was the right platform for that sort of message. What do you guys think? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, on this very strange approach to Spec Ops, and the writer who inspired the idea. Thanks again for listening. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the cut content of Spec Ops The Line. Hope you guys have a great day, and see you next time.